Now, the all spells version of Miracles that Sam prefers tends to be, I believe, better against combo decks. Though, maybe it's actually a give or take. Cards like Venser are fine in the matchups. Fleischaman on the play will start with a turn 1 Faithless Looting off Basic Mountain, and Sam just snap Force of Wills it.
Your opponent's never up to any good when they cast turn 1 Faithless Looting.
Pitching Force of Will. Basic Island will put Sensei's Divining Top into play for Sam. Now the question is whether or not David has another way to put cards into his graveyard before turn 3.
And the fight you generally want to go for against a Reanimator strategy is the thing that puts the card in the graveyard. Once they already have something like a Gristlebrand in the graveyard, all the reanimation spells that they have are just live.
Entomb for David. You're going to do it while Sam's mana is down. He entombs Gristlebrand, says go. So not setback, too big of a setback for Fleischaman. He manages, is 1 turn delayed, but he gets a creature into the yard. Now he's going to try to bring it back out.
And his hand looks to be full of stuff that does that. What he has to do is resolve these things, but it looks like multiple Animate Deads, multiple Exhumes.
Right, there's no way Sam has enough counter spells for all this reanimation. Maybe Sam can get a counterbalance down early. Exhume is going to be the play. Sam will spin top. Jace, Brainstorm, Island.
Yeah, that means Sam already has to have it. Swords of Plowshares on Gristlebrand doesn't really take care of the problem.
Swords Snapcaster in play for Sam. He's going to pop his top and then shuffle.
Yeah, he might be trying to brainstorm to force this and just hoping that David's on nothing.
This is a fast, a lot of times Miracles does not, it doesn't like having to convert its resources as quickly as Sam is doing it.
And one thing about the Black-Red Reanimator deck is if you're able to run them out of stuff in the early game, they have a lot more difficulty recovering than the blue version of the deck, just because, by virtue of not having access to Brainstorm and more card drawing effects.
Another Brainstorm here finds Terminus, Swords, some lands. Did not find his Force of Will. So yeah, Exhume will resolve. Here's Gristlebrand. Fleischaman, 19 life, can activate it twice. Now, unlike the blue versions, where this would be against a blue Reanimator, this would basically be a game over because a blue Reanimator deck would find 2 Force of Wills, 2 blue cards, and then just say go. Black-Red can't do that.
Right, it's a little bit more game to be played here. Their interaction, they like to have Chancellor of the Annex in their opening hand, and that kind of backs up their combo. The way that he's actually going to shut the Miracles player out of the game is getting his Iona Shield of Emeria on the battlefield named White, so those things can't really deal with his permanence, or Tidespot Tyrant. That one's really good because it's not legendary. You can't just Caracas it back to the Reanimator player's hand.
Right, goes ahead and draws 7, cracks a fetch land. There actually are no copies of Caracas in Sam Roukas' list for this weekend.
Well, that's a good sign for the Reanimator player.
Yeah, sometimes we see anywhere up to 2 Caracas in this list. Interesting about Sam's list, it's very honest. You see Thoughtseize shows Snapcaster, Swords, and 2 lands. So you'll see some utility lands out of Miracles, sometimes Cavern of Souls. All of Sam's lands just make mana. He has a red splash. He has 2 Volcanic Islands. That's for cards out of the sideboard. But, you know, nothing else.
And cards that really aren't going to play in this matchup, those red blasts, they're not going to matter against the black-red version of Reanimator.
No copies of Rest in Peace in his sideboard either. Sometimes you'll see that.
And the Thoughtseize here, you can take the Plow, you can take the Snapcaster Mage. Either way, your Gristlebrand's getting plowed. You have to figure out what you're doing from there.
So he just takes Snapcaster Mage. And?
That one leaves Sam with a 2-1, so that one makes sense.
Discards Chancellor of the Annex. Terminus by Sam Roukas puts Gristlebrand on the bottom of David's deck. Sam plays land, says go. There's a Swords to Plowshares in Sam's hand. Both players know about it. And look at David's hand. Animate dead, reanimate. He's in a Dark Ritual here. It's not will he make Gristlebrand, it's how many Gristlebrands.
Right. You can make Gristlebrand and Chancellor of the Annex here.
Chancellor, not that impressive here. It's just a 5/6, but why not? He'll use 2 of his black mana to animate dead Chancellor of the Annex.
And that is one nice thing about the Black-Red Reanimator that they take advantage of. Instead of having Force of Will, they just have this creature that has a pretty large body. And you can just reanimate this one sometimes.
Another Dark Ritual for David. Oh, this is great. Chancellor of the Annex. This is one gives you some play when it's in your opener. In play, it is a 5/6 that in a lot of ways acts like a Thalia. All of Sam's spells will cost one more, or he can have them get countered.
Right. And if it's in your opener, you get that effect for the first spell your opponent plays in the game.
And that's the nice part. It's some defense. This deck has some turn ones. Turn one, show Chancellor, Forest, Dark Ritual, Entomb, Reanimate.
And sometimes it's just show Chancellor, Faithless Looting, discard Chancellor, Lotus Petal, Reanimate Chancellor. Then your opponent's first spell is just going to be countered, and you'll be able to get in some chip shots and set up a little bit more with the Chancellor on the battlefield.
David's going to look at Sam's graveyard. He's going to reanimate Snapcaster Mage.
Ooh.
So he'll go to 7. Snapcaster Mage is going to target Thoughtseize again. This is some really nice sequencing on David's part. I'm a big fan of what's happening here. He's going to Thoughtseize Sam. Looks like he's trying to get rid of that Swords to Plowshares and then make Gristlebrand.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about this sequencing.
Yeah. There's always something fancy when you see the players reanimate their opponent's creatures, especially when their opponent's playing miracles.
Right.
And Swords to Plowshares will be cast on Chancellor of the Annex. And Sam has to pay extra. Chancellor is exiled. And just an island in Sam's hand, so the Thoughtseize works. David gains some extra life off that Swords, which actually is relevant as he's about to put an Animate Dead on a Gristlebrand. He has enough mana to draw 7 again, or enough life points to draw 7 again.
Right. If he even needs to.
You always need to draw more cards. I don't know. Uses the floating black mana to cast Exhume. There certainly are no creatures in Sam's yard, so here comes Gristlebrand again.
Yeah. David already reanimated the one that was in Sam's graveyard.
And so much redundancy in this black-red deck. He's got another Animate Dead in hand. Ugh. Sensei's Divining Top, land, spin from Sam. He's got Predict, Swords to Plowshares, and Counterbalance. Can Sam win this? I for a while thought we were done. I guess there's a future where he gets counter top going and swords a bunch of monsters. And
he needs to get through a turn where he can swords the Gristlebrand, set up the counterbalance, and just have David not do anything else in between.
Top will get him his Swords to Plowshares. He's going to swords the Gristlebrand in combat. Sam waiting until combat to do this in case of a card like Through the Breach were to show up.
Sure.
David will go to 18. And David didn't draw 7 there. Just lets this happen. Which makes it feel like he's got this under control.
Yeah, hopefully he has some kind of follow-up if that's the line.
Sam takes 2, goes to 15.
David certainly does not need to be at 18 life.
No, I mean, he's at Dark Ritual. Okay. Yeah, looks like he's got this taken care of. He's going to Dark Ritual, Flashback, Faithless Looting. He's got an Entomb in his hand as well.
He really just needs to get some creature on the battlefield.
Discards Chancellor of the Annex and Entomb. It's going to go ahead and put an Animate Dead on Chancellor of the Annex, so that's a 4/6. Sure.
No, the card that would potentially make David concerned about his life total is if Sam was able to Miracle a Large and treat the Angels. That's not in Sam's deck. There's no way for David to know that.
Oh, he's playing 2. That's his win con.
Ah, there was a line through it because the way it was printed. Okay, so that was not him crossing it off.
No, that's his win con. He's got it.
Gotcha.
You can't entreat for very much because of Chancellor of the Annex, though.
Yeah, that'll tax Sam 1 Angel. So currently a Miracle Entreat is only good for 1 Angel, and that's just smaller than the Chancellor.
Yeah, so here's 6 damage from Fleischaman. Sam will drop to 9. What did Sam do for drop? And then he's going to Miracle a Terminus, paying the extra. All right, Spins top, plays top, spins top, draws counterbalance, plays it, leaves a 1-mana card on top. Still going. David's hand, some air in it, and unmask. And I feel like we're going back and we're being punished for that spot. See, Sam has counter top. David missed a draw 7 on Gristlebrand, and
Yes.
I'm not liking that.
Technically,
yeah.
he played a little bit around Entreat, but played into what is happening right now.
Right, that Sam has gained control of the game now. Faithless Looting from Fleischaman, but I bet Sam can find a 1. He certainly has an Entreat on top, and if he needs a 1 bad enough, he can just go ahead and use the Divining Top. He'll go ahead and let the Faithless Looting resolve. Draws 2 Lotus Petal and land for Fleischaman. That's no game. Discards Tidespout Tyrant. That's a card he can reanimate. Unmask, Animate Dead in Fleischman's hand, and a land. He's just about out of gas. He's going to go for Animate Dead. Sam rearranges and puts Predict on the top. That will counter Animate Dead. And now respins the top. Here come the Angels. He's going to make 2 of them, a pair of 4/4s.
That's a 2-turn clock.
And you can see Sam has just picked up the pace. He's got to be excited here that he's about to win this game. This did not... I did not think this was going to happen, especially not once David got a Gristlebrand into play. Gonna hard cast Unmask, gets these Swords to Plowshares out of Sam's hand, says go. David has 1 turn, and he's got to do it through countertop. He goes down to 8.
Yeah, there's really nothing that David's able to produce from here.
And Sam Roukas on Miracles takes the first game. Reanimator goes off, but Sam is able to persist through and gets that one.
And it is a faster deck on average, but something you were talking about earlier, the fact that the black-red version does not have access to Force of Will.
Yeah, the turn he had the Gristlebrand was mentioning, if it was a blue Reanimator deck, we'd have been done. There'd have been 2 Force of Wills, 2 blue cards in the Reanimator player's hand. You know, the idea that you can Swords and Terminus your way out of a Gristlebrand doesn't work there.
Right.
But now Sam Roukas up a game against Reanimator. So we're going to look first at Sam's sideboard. He's the control deck. He has gotten the first game. And then we start looking at cards that are very good in this matchup. I'm going to look first at 2 Surgical Extraction. It's a graveyard deck. I love that. Anything else that Sam might want?
Flusterstorm is totally reasonable to fight over a lot of the spells in David's deck. Even Wear Tear sometimes you can both destroy Animate Dead as it's just an enchantment, and you can also use that one to float with the if you set up the counterbalance block to counter a 1 and 2. So it's of course just good to have in your deck. Those are really the cards that he's looking at here.
Now we might see something like Monastery Mentor just as a win condition. It may be better than Entreat the Angels here.
It's possible. It makes a very minor difference in the way the gameplay is.
Sure, yeah, it's not a big difference. I think that's probably because there's no kill spells in the black-red deck. That might just be the better win con.
Sure, yeah, you can make that call. But the relevant turns are 1, 2, and 3, really.
Right, once Sam gets to turn 4, how he wins is probably not what's at stake.
Right.
It's did he assemble countertop? Once he did, once we saw Sam establish countertop, David wasn't winning anymore.
Right.
All right, on David's sideboard, he's got 4 Abrupt Decay, 3 Pithing Needle, 3 Reverent Silence, 3 Nature's Claim, a Siren's Sanity, and a Chancellor of the Annex. Now, I know out of a fair deck, Abrupt Decay always comes in against countertop. I don't know if that's actually true out of Reanimator.
I'm concerned that would be over sideboarding for this matchup.
Right.
Maybe a small number of Pithing Needles for Sensei's Divining Top, but the cards that he really wants are that Sire of Insanity and that 4th Chancellor of the Annex.
Sure, those are better cards to reanimate. Tidespout Tyrant, not particularly good here, for example.
And he doesn't know that Sam doesn't have Caracas, so just non-legendary for the Tyrant and the Sire. That is technically a text. That's upside in a lot of these matchups.
Yeah, Sire of Insanity, the 6/4 for 6. Both players discard their hand at the end of the turn. Really
you get
a
that
nice card. Yeah.
Turn 1 on the play. If you have that with Chancellor backup, it's very difficult for the Miracles player to recover from that. It does take you a couple turns to kill them, so they can, you know, peel Tundra into swords, but that's about it. All
right. So if you missed yesterday, all of our coverage for the entire weekend is available on StarStyGames.com's YouTube page. That's where we post all of our videos. We have our full event recaps of every event here on the SCG Tour, including the best of SCG Tour highlights. We also have other things. Split second, we have our Versus series, Magic Online playtesting, and we actually have our Commander Versus series. You may have seen that over on Star City Games. We have those videos, and with them, we also have a Star City Games on our store. We have the Versus playmats now. This is for the Commander 2016 edition. We have both the decks of that and then the set of 5 decks, along with the Versus series playmats. So those are available on our website for order now. StarCityGames.com/Commander2016.
There's a lot of sweet cards in those Commander decks. I even know what some of them do.
Are they Leovold Emissary of Dress?
That one's from
Is that Conspiracy? Oh, no, you're right. It's the other one.
Hello.
Which one was... Okay. The Commander, that's where all, like... I assume this is some sweet legend. I guess the political cards are from Conspiracy, and the really awesome legends are from Commander. And while Leovold is an awesome legend, he's kind of a political card, so he's probably from Conspiracy.
Right. Also, only 3 colors. It's the 4-color Commander edition.
That is true. No longer are we limited to just having Nephilim be our commanders. Mulligan here from David Fleischaman.
Yeah, these cards have way better abilities than all of the Nephilim. If you just stapled them all together, they'd be worse than, I think, at least 4 of the 5.
All right, so what are so out of the Commander 2016 set? There's some sweet cards.
Yeah.
You got one in mind?
There's Yidris, which is not white, so it's the 4 best colors.
So we could play it in our 4-color control deck in Legacy.
Yeah. It's a 5/4. It has some kind of evasive ability. Maybe it's trample. I don't know. It attacks or it damages your opponent, one of those 2 things, and then the next spell or spells you play that turn have Cascade. It's like a mini Maelstrom Wanderer.
It's got like 100 abilities.
Yeah.
A lot of text. It's legendary.
There's one that makes 2 artifacts and does something when you do something with 2 artifacts.
Wow, well that sounds like a great card.
I believe it's called Brea something or other.
Makes 2 artifacts and does stuff with artifacts.
Does stuff that involves 2 artifacts.
Is it called Whirler Rogue? I think that's Whirler Rogue you described.
It's called Pia and Kieran Nalar.
That's the only card that makes 2 artifacts. It does.
There's
Servo Schematic that makes 2 artifacts. It does some stuff with artifacts.
Does some stuff. There's a 3rd one.
David Fleischman has kept Scries to the bottom. Land, Lotus Petal, and a pass. And turn 1 Sensei's Divining Top from Sam Roukas. Gristlebrand and Reanimate both in Fleischman's hand, but I don't know if he has a way to dump them into his graveyard. One of the disadvantages of the Blackguard Reanimator deck is they don't have Show and Tell in the sideboard, so Graveyard Hate's actually just always good against them.
They don't have Show and Tell, and they have less in the way of card filtering that they can draw into. So David specifically needs to draw Discard Outlet. He can't draw into Brainstorm and be okay.
You see Sam spins top and then pops it. Entomb by Fleischman. I'm going to give credit that Sam knows what he's doing here. A lot of times, it's very rare that you'll see a Miracles player just put their top away so early in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Looking like he wants it to shuffle away.
Yeah, maybe he just has backup top.
Reanimate or Entomb rather, will put Gristlebrand in the graveyard. Fleischman's going to attempt to reanimate this, but based on how Sam's been playing so far, I'm just not thinking that's going to work, and Sam's going to surgically extract the Gristlebrand.
And now David just kind of has 2 blank cards in his hand.
I think one of his cards now might even be Gristlebrand. Yeah.
Yikes.
So he's going to lose that one. He's going to lose the one in his graveyard. He's left with an Exhume in hand. This is the Blackguard Reanimator deck. In a lot of ways, I think is more similar to our Belchard style decks in Legacy. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like there's this like spectrum of combo decks. All the way on one side, you have the ones that are trying to turn 1 people, and you know, it's like a bullet with 1 or a gun with maybe 1 or 2 shots in it.
Mm.
You know, if the first one misses, maybe you get to try again. If you miss a second time, you're done.
So there's trade-offs between Black-Red Reanimator and Blue-Black Reanimator, where the Black-Red Reanimator deck, it's just faster. Generally, they have main deck Sire of Insanity, which is actually just a castable spell, sometimes on turn 1 off of Dark Rituals and Lotus Petal.
Right, so Black-Red, you know, it's really on that far end of, I do something really good on turn 1 and 2, and I hope you can't answer.
And if you get to turn 2 or 3, you really wish you were playing the Brainstorm version.
Yeah, so the blue one is a little... as we start moving across the spectrum. Then you get all the way towards, like, you know, Elves is, like, very far from that end. And then you even get to stuff like Food Chain that's, I mean, I guess a combo deck, but not really.
Of these Belcher-esque decks, and it is a deck that we had on camera earlier today, I believe that the most consistent and powerful, the deck that I would play if I had to play one of these ones for this tournament, is the Mono-Red Sneak Attack deck. Yeah,
that one, it's interesting because it does a bunch of really broken turn 1 and 2 stuff, but it actually reloads pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
You see Sam Roukas establish counterbalance to go with the Sensei's Divining Top. Looks like he'll be able to clean up game 2. He's got a second Surgical Extraction in his hand. I guess all he has to worry about now is David doing something like hard casting a Sire of Insanity, Sam missing. I guess that he probably has a Swords or Terminus or something.
Just reveal Terminus to counterbalance.
Yeah, it's...
problem solved.
Without Gristlebrand's in his deck, there's just not much second chance.
From here, Sam has to both miss on a lot of stuff, and David has to have a number of things go right. So the player that already controls Sensei's Divining Top is playing Brainstorm and Ponder, is the player that needs to miss. It just seems extremely unlikely.
Flash is going to cast Unmask on Sam. Wants to see the cards he's trying to beat. Looks like he'll get to. Or Sam will counterspell it.
He gets to see that one.
All right. At this point, Sam's just looking for a way to win and Entreat or Mentor, whichever one he's chosen. It's kind of why we mentioned during sideboarding, you said, yeah, maybe Mentor's better, but that's not the relevant part.
Jace the Mind Sculptor would be enough. You could win the game with that before David was able to do anything about it.
Yeah, that's probably the best win con, because it pitches to Force of Will. And those are the relevant turns, and here is Jace the Mind Sculptor. It will Brainstorm.
And you see a Wear Tear did come in off the sideboard. It's a great card to float with your counterbalance lock. Also just answers Animate Dead.
Puts on top of his deck. David says go. Predict. Sam will mill. Sensei's Divining Top. Draws 2. And you can see just with the speed of these interactions, Sam knows this deck in and out.
He's very far ahead. He basically just has to not make any extremely critical error.
2 forces, 2 blue cards, Jace, Counterbalance, Divining Top in play. This is going to be a 2-0 win for Sam as he starts discarding to hand size. This game will go on as long as David wants it to go on.
Yeah, Sam's not going to win it quickly. Sam even just using Predict to draw more cards after having to discard for a turn. Yeah, he could start ticking up the Jace as soon as he wants, but just solidifying a hand. I guess he's trying to set up the full 4 Force of Wills, even though you can only cast 3 on the same turn, because you can't pitch that many cards.
Keeps discarding Brainstorm to hand size. Yeah, that's...
He discarded the previous turn, and then on that turn, cast Predict and Brainstorm with Jace.
Sure. Another land, Jace to 5. Fate Sealing now. Yeah. He's going to have David keep every card on top because it doesn't matter. There's not a card he can't beat.
Yeah, really don't even have to look at them, right? You may as well.
That would be a style play, and I'm a big fan of these. Style equity would be if you just look at your cards in hand, and then without breaking gaze, just say Jace +2 top, and then you can keep it on top.
Jace +2 bottom without looking.
No, wait. The style move is definitely just like to tell them to keep it on top without looking at the card.
Yeah, you force them to pick up their deck and put the card on bottom just for no reason.
Sam just looking for one of his win cons.
No, Sam's just looking for lands so he doesn't have to discard to hand size. He has his win con.
That's true. Discarding to hand size is sad, so...
He's already had to do it a couple times.
David is working his way up to an 8-card hand so that he can discard. Maybe there's a play in there. He discards Chancellor the Annex. I don't think so. Jace up to 11. I guess by having a 7-card hand, when Jace ultimates at him, he'll have a larger deck.
With the same cards that already weren't winning him the game.
Right, yeah, he'll get to draw them again one at a time. Sam can Fate Seal them to the bottom. It looks like a Reptile did come in from Fleischaman. It's kind of when you mentioned, you said you're not sure that's the fight he wants. He drew one. It sure doesn't matter.
Right.
Faithless Looting.
It might have mattered if that was something that happened on turn 4.
Yeah, and you see just how in control Sam is. Faithless Looting, Sam's just going to let every spell resolve at this point. He has how many Force of Wills?
It's at least 3. Might be the full set in his hand.
Can hard cast them too. Just 5 lands here. Six mana sources, 3 fetch lands, sure. Why would we 2 for 1 ourselves?
Yeah. The hard casting Force of Will in Miracles comes up a lot more than it does in the other Force of Will decks. This deck is generally just more interested in making land drops.
Thoughtseize from David Fleischaman.
Can counter this. He can shrug his shoulders. He's got a lot of options.
Here, I have 4 Force of Wills, a Snapcaster Mage, a Surgical Extraction, and a Brainstorm. Which would you like to take? Take Surgical, okay.
Let's play a game. I'll let you pick 3 of them.
Dark Ritual from David, okay. I guess David's going to try to go for 3 consecutive reanimation spells. Dark Ritual is going to just be Force of Willed? Sure. Well, can't play 3 in 1 turn now. Says go. Sam resets the top of his deck. I mean, even if David somehow gets through all these Force of Wills, the problem is Sam just can Snapcaster Mage the Surgical Extraction.
Or Snapcaster Mage Force of Will for 7 mana.
Sam's doing here on end step is he is fetching, then spins top. If he doesn't see Entreat the Angels, or I guess whatever card he's looking for, then he just cracks another fetch land. Flusterstorm. Looks like he's into drawing Flusterstorm.
Yeah, it'd be really unfortunate to draw a blank card from this position.
Jace up to 13, Scries. Fate Seals, rather. I feel like when someone says, I'll use Jace, I'll Fate Seal myself, then you're like, there's a word for that.
We call that scrying, my friend.
Bloodstained Mire from Fleischaman. Jace, the Mind Sculptor, set to use the -12 ability next turn. That should end the game. So David's going to go for Animate Dead. This is his last chance to draw any new cards. Sam's going to Snapcaster Mage surgically extract the Chancellors. Dave's going to take a look at Sam's yard. There's another and that will be the handshake. So game and match goes to Sam Roukas. He improves to 11-2 with Miracles. He needs a win in one of his last 2 rounds to make top 8.